So my name's Joe Monks. I'm the head of recruitment at Barnet Football Club. I oversee everything from the under 8s up to the 21s in terms of the academy side of it, and then I assist out with the first team recruitment, doing opposition reports for the first team and helping identify players when required for looking at targets that we need to sign.
Alright. During your presentation, you mentioned that the more young the player you get, the less cheap it is and the better it is. But we had just one small ethical question. If the player doesn't develop enough or has difficulties being a professional, what do you do with those players?
So recruitment of players starts at academy football all the way from under 9s to under 18s, and along that pathway it's very important that the players involved are getting a form of education as well. So traditionally, especially in football, the background has been you do football or you do education. So there's this stigma that all footballers are not very bright. But if you look at it, footballers are bright, but the problem is their focus from the age of 13, 14 onwards has been solely football, and because it's been just football, their education hasn't existed, so they haven't developed that side. So if you look at Frank Lampard, for example, he got all A's at GCSE, very bright kid at school, but he didn't come across as intelligent because the moment he got to 16, the moment he finished his education, he never stepped foot in a classroom again. All he ever did was football. And now he's finished his footballing career. He's coming across much better in the media than when he was 20, 21 in the media, where he was just, you do an interview and he's going, they don't have any training, they don't have any background in it. And one of the things that we're trying to do at Barnet now, and football in general is trying to do, is we're trying to ensure that you do football and education. So we've linked up with a college which is just across the street from us called Cannons High School, and we do full-time football with them, with ourselves, and then they also do the education for us. So for example, we give the option, if a boy wants to do A-levels, they can do A-levels and still stay with Barnet Football Club, and we're one of the first clubs that offer that opportunity. And we believe that it means that should you not make it as a footballer, obviously we hope you'll make it as a footballer, but if you can't quite make it as a footballer, then you have an educational background that allows you to go into other, whether you want to go into the behind the scenes part of football, whether it be recruitment or coaching, or if you want to just pursue a career completely outside football, you have the same backing and the same grounding that any other kid has.
So to prove that football is not only about being a player, a professional, it's also the possibility of being behind the scenes and having the possibility to still continue education behind.
I think it's very important, but it's something that has been developing over the years. Traditionally it hasn't existed. You get identified as a footballer at 13, 14 and you just stay doing football until you're 18, 19. Now we're moving into a time where people are going to have to do both. Only the top 1% of people make it as a footballer, so you have to go lower and lower and lower down. When you're not the best player, you have to either go lower and lower down the leagues where there's no money for you, or you think, right, okay, I'm not making it full time, I'll go part time playing football and part time doing whatever it is you choose to do, whether it be a plumber, a builder, or go to university and be a professor. It could be anything.
Okay. Also, for the students that are watching us, they are in a business school, they don't have sports specialization. They don't know all the opportunities that exists in the club, all the marketing, all the communication and the scouting also. If you have one advice to give them, what it would be?
I think the most important thing for all people wanting to get into the industry of football is understanding that it's an industry. Yes, it's your sport, yes, it's your passion, but it is an industry, it's a business. So in every aspect of every business, there is different departments within each company that enables the business to run successfully. So if there is a normal industry that whether you work for Tesco or whether you work for Nike, if you're a big football club, they will have exactly the same departments that a normal football Nike and a big football club will have exactly the same departments, and the opportunities at those clubs will exist, but you have to look for them, you have to find them, you have to the most important thing for me, if you want to get into an industry, you have to experience it firsthand. So do your work, learn about the industry, which is where the education is vital, but then you have to have a practical input towards it, whether it be doing a semester working for a club, or doing a year doing an internship, or even just going on a work visit for a couple of weeks to different clubs. But the most important thing is you see the day-to-day workings of the club, and then as you see the workings of it, you'll understand a lot more about how you can develop as a person to get into that industry.
Yeah, because a lot of people think that in a club there's only players and coaches and medical staff.
But there's a lot more.
You have to understand that it's a company, like a company in the business. Like
100%. There's every aspect of it. It's very important that people experience it. But as you say, if you were to read the media, you'd only hear about those people. So you have to go in and you have to see what it's like. You get in the inside of a club and experience it. It's the most important thing.
Just coming back a little bit more on the world of scouting. You mentioned the importance of data. I wanted to know how important is the data and what are the limits of the data?
I think that the data and the analytics side of things should support my work as a scout. There will be some people that say your scouting work should support the data. So the data is most important and the scout is secondary.
Okay.
In my opinion, the scout is primary and the data is secondary. So I go to watch, let's say we're going to watch Tottenham versus Arsenal. I believe that I will pick out the best players on that pitch on that day. Whereas the data, and I think I should use that data to support my argument. Whereas some people will say the data will show you who the best player is, and the scout should support the data's argument. I believe that that the scout is most important, and that the data will help me support my argument. And if it doesn't, then I've done my job wrong. And I like the data because it improves you as a scout. Because if I'm saying that he's very good in the air, but then you look and he's only won 25% of his aerial duels on the stats, it shows that I'm not a good scout. So I think that it improves scouts constantly because you're constantly being marked against what what you've seen is being marked against what the stats are telling you.
All right. And we had another question as well. Do you think there is enough scouting possibilities or scouting in developing or underdeveloped countries?
It's a good question. I think the main problem with it is moving players. So there are lots of rules from FIFA regarding how you can move those players. So I think a market that has a lot of potential is Africa. I think Africa has great potential to produce some of the best players possible, but it's very difficult to move players from African countries into the UK until they reach a certain age or until they have a certain number of international caps. But look at Iheanacho. Iheanacho was doing very, very well, was very under the radar, and now he stepped straight into Man City and is one of the best players. And I think there's plenty more out there, but it's just about finding the rules to be able to get them through.
Right.
You were talking about during your panel conversation that people in clubs want to get the players younger and cheaper as possible. So where do you think that there's an ethical limit, maybe an age where you shouldn't buy or speak to a player and influence him?
The rules are set out by the FA, so everything we do is governed by the Football Association. So there is a compensation structure in place where if you're 9 years old and you play for this academy and this other academy wants to buy you, they must pay you X amount of money, pay the club X amount of money. From my personal viewpoint, provided the boy is in full-time education alongside his football, I don't think it matters. It's just the same way that he wants to play for his local grassroots team, he wants to play for Dog and Duck FC, he wants to play for Arsenal. It's the same, whichever the background is, it shouldn't matter. The most important thing is that they are in their education as well, and then there is no need for them to be be to their detriment.
We just want to come back quickly on still on the job of scouting. In England, in the UK, there are 4 professional leagues.
Yes.
In France, for example, there are only 2.
Yep.
Is it not more difficult to scout, for example, in National League in France, which is the 3rd division? Or how do you do? Because you mentioned the fact that you had partnerships.
Yeah.
But sometimes does not limit the possibility of seeing other players from the championship. How does those partnerships work with other teams?
Well, it doesn't affect it. We will scout. We have so at the beginning of every year, I will sit down and I will create my recruitment strategy for the year. So our recruitment strategy will be that we want to scout from League 2 to non-league.
Right.
And we will scout semi-professional leagues and League 2 to get the best players from those leagues. And then we believe we can sign them to Barnet. And then equally, we will go for the Premier League academies, and we will go and identify the players that we like that when they get released, we can say, come to Barnet, you're very good, you can come and play for us.
Right.
And we have our strategy in place, and every club will have their own strategy. Now everyone has to create their own niche, and everyone has to create their own area of the market where they are good. And in order to do that, you want to have the best knowledge and the best expertise you can. So the partnerships you have will assist you with that, but they won't be your sole provider of information. You will have your network of scouts that will go out and give you most of that information.
And we have one last question. This is a big issue in France right now, especially with the PSG. They have a lot of money.
Yep.
They can buy a lot of players. Let's say all the players they want. But it's not all the players that wants to play in the French league. So when, for example, you're scouting a young player, what is your main argument to make them come? Is it money? Is it the fact that they will be professional? Or is it the fact that we upgrade their way of playing? What is the main element that you use to make them come?
It's giving them the opportunity to play. So for us, being the size of club where we are, we have our own niche in that our aim is to look where no one else will look. So we look to find a player that no one else wants. So, not that no one else wants, but no one else knows about. So, you say there that it implies that there's 4 or 5 clubs all trying to buy the same player. If there are 4 or 5 clubs trying to buy the same player, the size of club that I am, I will lose. So I try and look where no one else is looking, and then I will find a player that we bring them to Barnet. They do well for Barnet, and then suddenly that big club then wants to get them from Barnet. That's how we try and recruit. And if a big club comes straight in and misses us out, then that's fine. We'll then just go and look somewhere else and try and find someone. We will provide an opportunity for your child or the player himself to develop. And we have excellent facilities, we have very good infrastructure, we have very good staff, and we provide a very good environment for the player to do well. All we need is that player to get the opportunity to develop with us, and then we will push them on to either our first team or a higher level, or maybe in some cases they'll come already into the first team.
And one last question for our students. If you have to get a definition of sport, what would it be?
Of sport?
Of sport as general.
Sport as general, anything that uses your body as a physical exercise is what sport is. But as the industry in itself, there are so many things that are linked to sport and related to sport that people just never even consider. If you go and look at a job site or whatever, and you look at all these jobs, I've worked in the industry full time for the last 8 years, and I look at some of the jobs and I think, I don't know what that means, I don't know what that is. But there are so many that my area of expertise is scouting and recruitment, but within every department of a football club there are different areas of expertise, and there are people that will be lead experts, like people that will be lead experts that I'll never know exist, but they're very good at what they do in their area, and they can add a lot to their field, whatever that is within the sporting industry.
All right. Wow. So sport is about passion.
Yeah, it's your dream. For me, when I was a kid, I set out, I wanted to work in football. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wasn't good enough to be a player. But I knew I wanted to do something. And identifying players and helping players, a large part of my job is finding players that may not necessarily come from the best background, may not have the best upbringing, and we can give them a chance through football to develop into good young men who can earn a living out of doing something that they dream of doing. And there is nothing more satisfying than giving people that opportunity and allowing them to develop in that way, when otherwise they'd be on the street or doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Thank you very much for this really useful and interesting interview.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
No worries.